I'm waiting, and we are live. We are broadcasting. We are broadcasting excellently.
Data can lie.
Data can lie. Let me just check on YouTube if this is live. Yes.
And I will pop the URL in the communities. Maybe people can join us.
I have the chat open. I've got everything here. We've got 0 views, which is fine. They're gonna come. They're gonna be here. They're gonna join us, and people are gonna listen to our PPC ramblings or our Fireside chat number 2, no longer number 1. So that's great. Also, just so you know, like for any future streams, if you feel like the intro is weird or bad or too like silent, I can just cut that off and I can just start it somewhere else.
Okay, good to know for the future.
I can just do that in YouTube, so that's amazing. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about data in relation to PPC. Hopefully, not make that too boring or make that too dry. But I'd say that's sort of the basic topic. And within that, we'd really like to talk about how to do effective competitor analysis, how to look at data like the auction insights report, like look at the stuff that's in there. Also, Gil wants to talk a little bit about Merchant Center, which I think is also very, very relevant for anyone who is on, doing any e-commerce type of stuff. But also know that most of this data analysis really also just works for lead gen because a lot of these things just overlap. Anything you'll learn for e-commerce, you can, at least with the principles, you can overlap to lead gen. And the other way around, it's also pretty similar. You learn from one and you apply to the other. So with that, the introduction, I think. I believe you have the link in there. I can't look at that. I can't open Discord now and like check out what you posted, but that's fine.
Yeah, I posted over in the agency Discord and on the agency Reddit. So
Oh, you posted
I'm
on the
sure.
agency Reddit as well?
Yeah, why
That's
not?
a first. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
let's see if I see that as well. Oh, I do see that. Oh my god. That's pretty cool. I love the thumbnail on there. I'm like, I've got like half an eye open. Oh well. All right, so where do we start with uh, with this?
Data.
With data,
We'll
yeah.
start at data. My favorite character from Star Trek: The New Next Generation.
Yeah,
Um,
I think data is one of the most important things for Google PPC. Any type of advertising really. Um, Even like spanning further and saying it's one of the most important things in business. But I also think you shouldn't be too like maybe a good introduction question. Can you be too data driven? Like can you be too data focused? I think yes.
I would qualify that a little bit, and I would say if your data is true and if you're interpreting it correctly, you cannot be too data driven.
That's true.
However, that's a big qualifier because none of the data we have is the gospel truth, and none of us are able to interpret it very, 100% correctly. So
Yeah.
in reality, yes, you can. Pragmatically, yes.
Yeah,
Many
theoretically you
companies are
cannot
very,
theoretically you cannot have enough data, right? Or you cannot have
yeah,
you cannot be as data driven as or you should be as data driven as you can be. But practically I do see a lot of people sort of like blind themselves with the data. They might
yeah,
even try to like, map everything out, like see everything and then just kind of get lost in this labyrinth of their own created data. Whereas
exactly.
like what I notice as like a marketer for quite a while now, and also as a PPC freelancer and agency owner, it's like it's all about the quality and about the data that you're looking at that really matters. It's more about the specific data points and the specific interpretations you make, rather than having every single detail.
I have noticed when we inherit accounts from maybe previous agencies that perhaps don't do data as well as we do, a lot of times the clients will give us some older reports. And this is unfortunately not an extreme example. A lot of great agencies do very well at data, but many don't. And you'll notice the reports are just PDFs with screenshots and screenshots and screenshots. We got one report from a new client that was like 50 pages of Google Analytics screenshots. It just literally, it was just you were just scrolling endlessly, and it's all true. Like they weren't lying. This is the actual data, but it was useless because there's so much there. They're not looking at the right stuff. They're getting distracted by just numbers.
Yeah, it's in a way you could even say it's misleading, right? Like if I just drop like 50 pages of like data on your desk, you're going to be like, Luke, I don't know what this is, right? Like I don't know what to do with any of this.
And that's why I'm kind of okay calling those sorts of agencies out, because I do think it's misleading. It's telling the truth by giving, or it's telling a lie by giving people so much truth they have no idea what to believe.
It's like just overloading with information, and then the person's going to be like, well, can you explain to me like what this actually means? And then you've got free reign to just say whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like you can just say, well, we're going to agree because this and that, and then the person's just like, well, whatever. I don't want to look into the details. This is too complicated for me. I'll just trust you. But over time, the client obviously ends up being like, okay, well, is this really working or not? I'm not sure. Yeah. I always found that a little bit weird when I heard that, when people would say like, yeah, the client didn't know what was going on, right? Or like a client, like, cause like I take over I've taken over a couple of accounts from like pretty reputable agencies as well. And yeah, like the clients often are just like, yeah, we don't really know if it's working. And I'm just like, holy crap. Like,
and a lot of that is a communication issue even more than a data issue, because as a vendor, as a PPC specialist, I have to understand that I like and appreciate lots of metrics and data on these things, but I work with these every day. I know what I need to look at. The client only cares about one or two things. And usually it's either profit or scaling, and sometimes both.
Yeah.
So you have to just decency and communication, like you just have to communicate and boil everything down into those two things that they care about. If they're maybe especially in tune to marketing, they will have other things they want to look at. But really, it's just they want to know their ROAS is going up. They want to know.
Like ideally, like if you're the client, like if you can have the faith and the trust in your vendor that they're just focusing on that, and all you have to look at is like, are the numbers going up, right?
Like, is the money coming in faster than it's going out? That's really all that like 99% of clients care about.
Yeah. Or like
so it's it's our job to
knowing, like,
tell them like how much are you. Yeah.
No, that sometimes shocks me, where it's just like, because like I feel like like being so much on these platforms, right? Being so much on the Google Ads platform, that like, okay, how can you not communicate this properly? Like to me, it just feels like intentional misleading. I don't want to say every company does that. It could just simply be, maybe the person who makes the report doesn't know any other way, and maybe the person who sends the report doesn't understand the report either, and it's just some sort of cumulative miscommunication. But as someone who actually is in the data, in the accounts, like talking with the clients, like, yeah, I always know if it's up or down, and I always tell. Like it's not so difficult.
Yeah, it's so your original question was, can a company be too data driven? And that's why I would say, if the truth is still being portrayed, no.
Yeah.
But often, and probably most of the time it's not. And so because of that, it's just very dangerous to focus just on the data. So many companies pragmatically do become too data driven.
You really
I
start
see
looking
that
at
a
the
lot
wrong,
in,
like at the wrong data points. For example, like Google Ads is becoming more and more strategic, um, like as like time is going on. And whereas before you might actually be constantly making manual adjustments, right? Like manual bid adjustments.
right,
Now, you've got all, automated bidding and all that. So like, for example, your change log is going to look a lot emptier than it did maybe a couple years ago, right? If
right.
you somehow seem to think that checking out the change history is a right indicator or a good data metric to follow, right? Yeah, like right now you'd be misinforming yourself, right? You might think, oh, okay, my
Yeah,
agency
because
has only done this
now
many, yeah.
it can actually be the opposite now because sometimes you can fiddle with the wrong campaign, reset the learning process. You should have just left it alone for 4 or 5 or 6 days or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, I think you see, yeah, it's just sometimes it's just the wrong numbers, like, or the wrong data. We've had a lot of folks focus on personas, for example,
Oh yeah.
and that they'll they'll assume and think that they need to collect data points on demographics.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's there is somewhere out there you'll find the truth. But my favorite example was we had an apparel client, and they were obsessively focused on selling to young men
Mhm.
who wore their products. And that's great. Like, yeah, it is a young man's product, but as it turns out, the vast majority of their sales were girlfriends and mothers and grandmothers. So it was really weird having like these tennis shoes, like these sporty, flashy tennis shoes that a 72-year-old lady from like Idaho bought. Like, the demographics like weren't lining up with what they thought, and so they would just obsessively poll young men on like what social media do you hang out on, like
Mhm.
they would try to it
Kind of
no
force a niche to exist.
where are their girlfriends hanging out on, because the girlfriend might be on Pinterest or something and then be like, oh, that would be a perfect present for my boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like classical marketing, right? It's like, well, are you actually targeting the right person? Um,
Hmm.
Good question that I like to ask maybe on that is like, how did you guys uncover that? Like, how did you guys see that it was actually a different audience than?
By collecting data.
There you
um,
have it, folks.
but but actually it was for them. We helped them set up a CRM,
Oh, nice.
and kind of just started as we started. We don't do email work like Klaviyo or anything, but
Mm.
we dive into HubSpot or Salesforce or Klaviyo, and that helps us out a lot actually, because you
Mm.
can see, oh look, 60% female. Okay, so
Looks
there's
like
got
our
to be a
targeting's a
disconnect
bit
here.
different. Yeah.
But for them, we found out. I think we knew what was going on because of the search terms.
Okay.
So we went into the search terms report, and a lot of gift
Oh, okay.
keywords.
Interesting.
So like shoes for like as a
Boyfriend gift.
gift, or like,
Yeah, right. Or like
yeah,
shoes for
best boyfriend
grandson.
gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I do want
yeah.
to bring up something though. Like you say, like you looked at the CRM data. Um, I kind of was leading you in a way with that question was to like maybe also look at like PPC and Google, because right, like in Google you can see demographics, age, household income. Like there are these like
Yeah.
different metrics you can take a look at. But I think the CRM answer is a lot better because it's actual data. Like it's the actual data that you've got. It's first party customer
We
data.
We do look at the Google Ads and Google Analytics data on demographics. It's limited. Basically, the way Google tracks that is they only track if you're logged into a Gmail account on that device.
Yep.
So they pull some assumptions on if you're rich, poor, male, female, old, young from your Gmail account.
Yeah.
Which is a little, concerning privacy-wise, but it's just what they do. But the thing is, like, less than 50% of people are usually logged into a Gmail account. So the data is, and sometimes it's a shared account, or a home computer, so it's not really always accurate. It's probably a good pointer, but then, yeah, you kind of have to go, like, the first party data is always going to be much more dependable.
Yeah, and like I would say an interesting, thing there is like even in your first party data, like you've got an e-commerce store, you don't actually get that much, right? You're just getting someone's name, you're getting their address,
An email.
and email. So all you can really look at is like where are people buying, right? Like what are the locations that are getting me the most sales? And this can be super relevant, right? Like if you're selling something that sells great in like a high temperature area, like you should be focusing on the southern states, the United States, and maybe not someplace where it's a lot colder the whole year round, right?
Yeah, you don't sell bikinis in Alaska. Like,
exactly.
You just
Maybe
don't.
do.
Maybe so. I don't sell bikinis anywhere, so maybe that's a hot spot.
But yeah, like all you can really see is whether someone's male or female. You can see their name and you can see where they bought from, and that's it.
Yeah.
And to draw a comparison with that, if you're doing lead generation, you're getting a fuck ton of first party data, especially if you subscribe to the idea of having longer forms, which I think anyone who should be watching, they should be using longer forms, or they should be advising their clients to use longer forms for lead gen. It's amazing. Like, it's amazing how much data you can get and how much qualification of the lead you can do before you even speak with the lead. So
Yeah.
that's just again, that first party data is extremely useful, but there are some limitations with e-commerce, I guess. But still, you can get information out of there. I think there's a question in the chat, and I think it's directed
Let's look at that.
to you.
Sloth with your fiance. How did you manage to fix those difficulties? I don't know. Can you define that question?
I think they're trying to ask whether or not cold calling businesses that you can find on Google Maps that don't have a website or not data one is a good way to generate leads. So assuming that you are a web developer, assuming you make websites for people, that is a way to get leads. I cannot tell you how efficient it is because it depends entirely on your ability to sell. Because if you can find people with old websites or outdated websites, first of all, it's going to depend on whether or not they have the current resources or the capital to invest in a new website. And second of all, it's going to depend on your ability to sell these people, right? To talk with them and to, show them that buying a new website is good, that it's something worthwhile, and that you are the right person to create that website for them. So make sure you've got examples, make sure that you've got, maybe some information you can send over, portfolio. Ideally, if that's in the same industry as they're in, it's even better. So if you're trying to sell a restaurant a new website, show a couple of restaurant websites that you've made before. On that whole notion of like cold calling, it works. Cold email also works. It's difficult. It's a tough way to get clients because it's just such a numbers game. You're just gonna have to contact so many people. But doing that locally can definitely help, especially if it's like in a town that you're living in or like a city nearby, because you can also even visit the people, right? So after you've made contact, you can actually have appointments and speak with those people in person, which can be a really, really good way to build rapport and build that relationship.
Yeah, I was about to say the local thing. I think it's very difficult to do cold outreach these days. It's getting more difficult simply from competition. But you have a leg up if you can do it locally in your town, and you can be like, "Hey, I'm also from Atlanta. I'm in your neighborhood." Like that will help your chances. At least, like it will. People won't just click spam immediately if you can have some sort of connection. But yeah, that was a good answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think for any new person creating a business, getting clients is always the hardest part. I mean, honestly, I think for most people, even after they've created their business, getting clients is one of the hardest things. Um, I mean, I spent a good 2, 3 years perfecting my ability that sounded so fucking arrogant. What I try to say, like I've put a lot of time into getting good at like sales, like getting good at creating connections with people and getting those clients, right? But it's a difficult process.
Yeah, lead. I mean, it's always lead generation is always the number one problem that anybody has, and probably not just agency business, but any business. Um, so I found taking a long-term approach helps. So whatever you can do, you might have to sacrifice some short-term payoffs, which is hard when you're first starting out because you just need some money.
Yeah.
But the more value you can contribute on a long-term scale with the idea that maybe this week I won't get a client, but next year I'll get a very nice client. That will really help.
You do gotta have some sort of base or foundation to be able to do that, though. Like
You
if
do,
you're
yeah.
just starting
If
out, like you just take on anything you can get, right?
you either need another job or you need some savings or you need to live with your mom or something, but it's like, yeah, you can't take the long-term approach if you're hungry today.
Yeah, exactly. But
So
once you're there,
that's
it's a really good point because I don't see so many business owners think that way. They still think like they might find out how to get short-term clients and then they're constantly focusing on just keeping that wheel spinning and keep getting like more of those short-term clients and that short-term work. That's sort of at the same size as the work that they're getting now. So that
yeah,
obviously builds a business, but it doesn't build a business to a larger scale, right? Um,
no,
so being able or putting some time into building like alternative or adjacent methods of getting leads or getting clients, I think is very important and very useful. Um, so like even if you like figure out one channel, like maybe that's cold email or cold outreach, you should then once you've got the ball rolling and once you've got some income and maybe when you're actually able to do your business full time, to allocate some time also into building out other channels than just one. Ideally, channels that have a self like moving momentum, so they sort of grow on their own. That could be like LinkedIn, some social media presence. That can be writing stuff, being a thought leader. Um, it can be creating a YouTube like this one. There's so many ways to build presence, and especially if you're in like a
yeah,
traditional niche, it's pretty amazing. Like, because most of your competitors will not do the same thing. Um, I mean, honestly, even in like digital marketing, I don't think so many people actually do a really really good job at like brand building or like personal branding or
yeah,
creating that
yeah.
presence, right? Whereas you would almost assume that, well, if they're digital marketers, they should know how to do the digital marketing. Um, but I don't see it
Yeah.
that much. Like,
No, I would say it's probably one of the most competitive of all niches to do that in. Yet at the same time, it's surprisingly easy. It doesn't take a whole lot to start becoming known for something. Um, just, I guess that is the long-term approach rather than the short term. You can't just build your brand and get, a client this week. But
also, like
um,
you'd be surprised how fast you can start building um, a reputation and momentum in a particular niche. Like I mean, you know this. I do a lot of HVAC work, and like more and more just seems to come my way. Like, cause
Yeah.
I speak about HVAC now, and like I give people advice, and it just snowballs, right? Like you might have one client in one niche, then suddenly you've got two because you're giving people advice or you're talking online, giving tips, or maybe on LinkedIn or whatever, and then suddenly you've got three, maybe you got four, and suddenly you become known as like, oh, that's the guy to go to if you
Yeah.
want a new HVAC website, right? Or if you want that person to do PPC. Um, that actually happens pretty fast. A lot of people also
Yeah.
just kind of fall into a niche. Like they don't choose it, like they don't choose a niche, but then they just sort of see it
It
appear
just happens.
or
Yeah.
emerge, and they're like, oh, well, I guess I'm just working with, I don't know,
Yeah.
very broadly e-commerce or lead gen, or a lot more specific. Oh, well, all my clients are, in the food industry, right? It just, yeah,
Yeah.
it just kind of happens. I don't know if you've experienced that, but
Totally. Yeah. I I think you can niche down into either a very narrow technical service
mm,
or an industry. The I'm a little hesitant to go down to niche into industry specifically because I've seen it backfire.
yeah,
I knew a guy who had an agency that purely served travel companies,
okay,
and March 2020 crushed him because there was
oh
zero
yeah,
travel. All the hotels shut down. There was no flights, and he closed his doors.
holy shit.
So, that's obviously not something that happens every year,
Mm,
but
we hope.
it, we hope. But it kind of does indicate like you have to be careful. It's like just don't pick a niche that's going to be gone next year. Like,
It's kind of like,
don't.
it's a bit like investing, right? It's like, do you want to have the index fund that's sort of like having different industries in there, and
Right.
the growth is going to be a lot more stable, but a lot more consistent? Or are you going to try and like follow some hot trend and try to like for example, some people doing social media management, they're like, everyone's going
Mhm.
after the trend, but then once the trend is gone, all the businesses are gone as well, right?
Well, and here's something I've noticed, which hopefully will trigger some people out there because they need to stop doing this. I have noticed such an uptick in people doing social media management for gyms. Gyms are always going to be out there. I get it. Social media management is going to be a thing, but literally everyone is trying to do social media management for gyms or for like other like sexy things like luxury watches or
Yeah.
like yacht rentals. It's sexy, it's cool, but at the end of the day, the first time the economy starts dipping, nobody's renting yachts anymore, and you won't have any clients.
Mm.
You, I think building a stable niche is more about, like for us, we have two very broad things, but when you pull them together, it narrows down.
Mm.
We do Google Ads, pretty broad, but that's all we do. Just really it's paid search. And then we do like e-commerce and tech and SaaS type
Okay.
clients.
Fair.
So you put those together and suddenly it's a little bit narrower. It's not as niche down as many people do, but like we really only do kind of e-commerce paid search, and that is a niche. It's been pretty easy for us to like make a name for ourselves just in that, even though there's hundreds of people doing that, thousands, but it's still small enough you can make waves.
I like niching on a technology or like a platform
Hmm.
versus an industry, especially if that like platform or technology is very broadly used and in high demand, right? So PPC is something that's in high demand because it's so close to the profit, right?
Yep.
It's a profit generator. It's not an expense, right? It's not
Yeah.
being on the expense side of a business is not amazing unless you have a business that is extremely or service that's extremely needed. Then it's okay to
Hmm.
have to be on the expense side. But if you can show that you're generating revenue, which is extremely easy to show with PPC, um, like that's very beneficial. But yeah, I like the point I wanted to make is like I really enjoy having one sort of tech stack or one platform. Um, I don't think I could, or I don't think I could be as good as I am in one thing if I were to add, say, Facebook or I don't know, Instagram or like any other platform to what I'm doing because like I'm also just doing Google. Like I'm so
Yeah.
fast. I know like I just know the platform inside out now. Just like it's like I can give you an example. Like when I was just starting this, I it took me a while to onboard a client. Now it's like super easy, right? Whereas like the more services that you're providing or the more technologies that you're using, they're all going to have a different onboarding process. So for you to optimize your own workflow, it's also going to take more time.
Yeah, we started as a full service agency, and that lasted about 2 months. That was 7 years ago, and then we did paid social for another couple of years, and we dropped that. Like we just kind of realized we were really good at PPC, and everything else was a distraction. It was
Fair.
a distraction in our thought process. It was a distraction in selling ourselves to potential clients. It was a distraction in quality, like honestly, because someone would say, "Hey, can you do this channel?" And we're like, "Sure." We can't. I mean,
No.
we could do it okay, but like we could knock PPC out of the park so well that we I'm so glad we decided like we are doing PPC.
That's also such a
It's you
differentiator
have
to
to
be able to
hire
say,
someone else.
like
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
to be able to say that you are beating most people at the one skill is so much more
Yeah.
powerful than saying, and this is like I understand why this is unintuitive to people, because everyone like when you start business you think, well, you start and you get some clients and then after a while you're like, everyone would love it if they could just find one party that could do everything for them, right? Like you
Right.
think that in your head, but that's not true. Like people actually love it a lot more if they can have someone who's the absolute best in one particular thing, especially
Yeah.
if that one particular thing brings them revenue, right?
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, like I like
And for
same.
some of our bigger clients, especially, um, they don't. This is a shift that's happened in the past couple years in the agency world. Decent sized clients, I'm talking like tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions in revenue, don't hire one agency of record anymore.
Yeah.
They hire 5 different agencies, one to do SEO, one to do PPC, one to do video and brand, one to do their like website management. That way they're paying as much or less as they would to a huge agency, but
Mm.
they're getting the best of the best in the world to work on that specific aspect. There's no way that company can hire that caliber of people in house for
Mm.
all of that aspect and
It's gonna be
still
like a
stay
multi-year long
cost competitive.
process. Yeah.
Oh, it would take years to hire. You'd be paying every single one of those people 100 grand a year, and like it's not really that scalable for most companies. So they can hire an agency that they can if they're no good and get
Mm.
another guy who's better. So it's very easy to kind of shop and pick the
And
best
usually like at the
relatively.
cost of maybe one or two people in house, right? So
Exactly. Or less, is
or
depending on
less.
the agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Because chances are even a many, multi-million dollar companies don't need a full-time webmaster.
no.
You know, everything can be done 10 hours a week. And why would you pay a full time if you can, pay a decent cost to a freelancer? But yeah.
Yeah. I think we've got a couple of questions still. Let's see. Uh, someone's like younger, so under 18, wanting to make an agency. Honestly, I think it's cool that young people are already like wanting to be
Hmm.
active and doing things. Like I definitely encourage
Hmm.
that. Um, they want to make websites.
So,
Uh,
see, here's what I did when I was young, because I am an old man now.
very.
But I started building websites when I was 14, I think. And that was before WordPress was a thing, uh, which is a little scary to say. But
The old
I, you know,
HTML
I,
websites.
I hand coded these things in Dreamweaver. But I think it's an excellent way to get into marketing in general. These days, it will be more about probably configuring Shopify or Squarespace or Wix or something, unless you're doing like full on custom development. I did it as a teenager, but the difference is I did it as a freelance, like a kid, basically. And that was much easier to sell than selling it as an agency. 'Cause I wasn't an agency. I still had a lot of acne. So like it just it's just what it was. I think it's fantastic to start young. It's just you have to think of it from the perspective of I'm getting a lot of experience and I'm probably going to do a lot of crap work
Yep.
for crap clients. It's just the name of the game, but it's totally okay. Instead of paying someone to learn, people are paying you to learn, basically. And you're getting better. It just takes years to get good at anything. That's just the truth. And
Yep.
so you have to be patient. Take things if it doesn't matter if someone wants to pay you $50, just do it. It's $50 is $50. Like,
And
what
like
else are you gonna
honestly,
do?
when you're younger, like $50 is actually a lot more to you because like you don't have to pay
Yeah,
rent, you don't pay like all these crazy bills. Like
exactly.
that 50
Yeah,
bucks
50
is like
bucks now would
it's like
hurt,
50 bucks
but
for you to just spend on whatever you want, right? Whereas
yeah.
for many people who are
And
starting a business later, like that 50 bucks is like, you know, a couple percent of their
that's
rent.
exactly, unfortunately. Yeah, if I was young and I would do it exactly the same way again now, even though it's, 15 years later, but
It's
maybe more
got
like
so fucking
18.
like
Yeah, I don't know
that's
what
funny.
happened there, but yeah, I would just do the same. Just don't worry about making it. You're not going to be rich when you're a teenager.
No.
It's not going to happen. But you can become a lot more skilled and smart at certain things, and
Because that's
that
the
is
thing, it's about
invaluable.
building skills. Like, if you're building skills and, like, if you're serious about building skills at a young age already, like, by the time you're in your 20s, like 21, 22, like, if you are 22 and you've already been building websites for, like, 4 or 5 years, you're
Yeah,
pretty much ready to, like, do bigger work, right? And you're gonna,
yeah,
like, also, I just gotta say this, you're gonna be taken a lot more seriously. That is something you should keep in mind. You can build websites for local businesses around you, and they're probably going to be like, all right, yeah, cool. Like, here's like $200 for a new website, right? Which is cool, and it's going to get you experience. But as you get older and get more professional, people stop seeing you as like the kid that can just do some
mhm,
small work for them, but they'll see, oh, this is like an actual legit, like,
yeah,
business or, professional. And then suddenly you can charge a couple thousand for a website, right? And then maybe by the time
yeah,
you're 25, 26, like you've been making websites for like almost 10 years. Like at that point, like you can be, taking on projects that are maybe 10K, 20K. Um,
yep,
it just compounds like that. But like Gil said, it does take time. There's just that
yeah.
patience required.
Make the mistakes when you're young. You can like learn from all the mistakes when you're like 16. It's much easier than when you're 26,
Yeah,
because when you're
absolutely.
26, you have to pay rent. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, like the faster you can start, the better. Um, just have that expectation and like know that like you're not gonna be able to, like if you're 17, 18, 19, and like if you're in front of like a 40-year-old business owner who wants a whole new website, like they're probably not even going to listen to you. Like they're like, I know that sounds shitty, but that's just unfortunately the way.
Yeah, the harsh reality is I think I was treated like a kid until I was like 25, and then I was semi treated like a kid until I was like 30.
Yeah.
Like it sucks, but it's just like it's gonna be a long time until anyone takes you seriously and wants to pay you thousands of dollars. It sucks, but it's
But
just
do
the
you
way it
know
is.
that like if you're on your own, like if you're building your own business, it's going to be a lot faster than if you have a job. It's going to be even slower to be taken serious there. So that's
That's true. Yeah, that's just life. That's not
like if
just
you're
freelancing. That's
25
just
and
life.
like you've got your own business and you're making websites for people, you're going to be able to like make good money. Meanwhile, if you're in employment, it's gonna take a lot more many years, like a lot of years to just to be seen as like an executive or as a manager. So yeah, no, good. Get started. I would say like it's fun. Like if web development is what you like to do, do that. It's not my thing, but
Yeah,
I like PPC. I enjoy PPC. Makes
I
me a
like
little bit
PPC
crazy.
too.
You know, just looking at bidding data the whole day, crazy. The merchant life, right?
Merchant life.
What? I mean, don't you have that
Uh,
like inner fantasy where you're like, I'm a merchant, like selling things left and right? Okay, maybe I'm weird.
yeah, it's barter, just like pay a little bit here, pay more there.
Exactly. Like, can I get
Someone pays
150
me.
for that click, or can I get $2?
Yeah, kind of like the Wall Street pit, where I'm just
Exactly.
here. I'm just
Yeah.
selling traffic. Just come buy
Exactly.
it from me.
I mean, I said it
Yeah,
before.
it's
I
not,
think there's a
not that.
big overlap in personality traits of those pit traders and the PPC specialists.
It's probably not a positive thing, but I'll take it.
Hey, it's a flaw turned into a virtue. So I wonder if there like I don't think there's many PPC people in the chat. That's would have been nice to see
Yeah.
a couple of PPC questions too, but happy to answer other ones as well. Um, what would you recommend to use as a platform? Do I read that right? To use for my
I
clients?
guess I assume you're asking about like web platforms.
Oh, right.
Honestly, right now, Shopify, if you can start coding Liquid for Shopify,
That's good.
it's big right now. It's
Yeah.
big right now. And if you
Also,
can
another
learn,
thing,
Liquid
if you
is
can do
pretty
it like
tricky, but
marketing ops, that's also a pretty good niche. Like if you're
Mhm.
able to do all these integrations, like with CRMs, if you can set those up, you can manage them.
It's really light. It's lightweight coding. It's basically just scripting. But if you get good at that, like, everybody needs that.
Yeah,
Installing
like
just
it's
tags for
like a
different
lot of people
platforms and
overlook that stuff because it sounds boring and it sounds like uninteresting and not sexy at all,
it
which
is.
is actually, yeah, it is, but that's actually really great because someone's got to do it, right? And when, some intern from marketing is trying to set up the CRM and it's just a mess, and then maybe they do that for a couple months, and then afterward they're like, okay, we need someone professional. Like they can go to you and you can just charge them like a good
Yeah.
amount, right?
Yeah, I think that's actually fantastic. It's a good segue into development too,
Yeah.
if you're not already doing that. Like you get used
There's a
to web
lot of
development
people
pretty
like
quickly.
specialize in things like Salesforce and all that. Like just get really good with those huge
And a
CRMs.
Salesforce implementation consultant, those guys can make so much.
Holy shit, yeah. No, when I worked for this big startup, like one of our developers, or like actually our lead engineer, used to be in a Salesforce agency, and the billables, holy crap, they were charging $200, $300 per hour, like for, I mean that was boutique Salesforce, right? Whatever the fuck that means, but um, yeah,
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
like actually amazing. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're looking for development work, that's also a good niche. Because I think everyone avoids Salesforce. I think people really hate it. Like I think it's very dated to work with. But yeah, it's those legacy systems that are great if you know.
It's common. It's out there.
And in a
We have a
way,
lot of clients that
it's
use it.
similar with
They don't like
PPC.
it. They use it.
It's similar with PPC. There's a barrier to entry. Like how many people are able to just learn PPC? Like because you need to spend money, right, to learn it, which makes it hard to learn
Mm.
because nobody wants to spend money on a newbie, right? Like,
But I like that, and it's probably good advice. You want something that has a barrier to entry, because
absolutely,
otherwise you're competing with the entire world. There's
absolutely.
millions of people just like you out there. But guess what? Only a few of them want to do one very hard, difficult thing. So if you can jump that barrier, you're in the top,
Yep.
literally single percentile.
Like the
Yeah.
more you can sort of put things together and like increase the moat or the barrier of what you're doing while still doing something that's highly valuable to people, that's amazing. Like that means you're going to be earning money. Like no problem, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
PPC, I think the big barrier with PPC is simply that you got to spend money to learn it, either your own or someone else's. Most people just don't want you to spend money, which means the
Hmm.
only way to usually learn it is like you spend your own money. That's what I did. That's how I learned PPC. I just wasted my income on trying to like build funnels and all that, which taught me a
Hmm.
lot about funnels also, which is great. But usually the only way is like if you're working in an agency or if you've got like a senior or like a mentor who's able to
Yeah.
teach you. Uh,
One kind of hack that I don't know if it's the case so much outside of the US and the UK, but Google Ad Grants is a good way to get some experience. Google gives like qualified nonprofits 10,000 a month in free ad spend. So if you can work for a nonprofit, volunteer for a nonprofit, whatever, a lot of them don't have anybody managing those accounts. It's free money for them.
that's cool.
It's a it can be a good way to learn without risking a whole lot of someone's hard-earned cash. So that's one thing if you're interested in getting into Google Ads. It's
Or you start
not a
your
bad
own
route.
nonprofit. You take those grants for yours. No, don't do that. Just like create 10 shell companies, like all like no, don't do that. PPC
Luke wakes
cash
up and
off.
his account is banned, and they're like, "We knew he was doing that."
Nefarious
No.
advice. Yeah, very.
Yeah, Google's very strict about qualifying. It's a long process to qualify for one of those Google Ads grants. You have
Yeah,
to
but
send
like any
all your.
nonprofit, like I don't know, even like I don't know, an animal shelter or whatever, like they should be able
Oh,
to get them,
totally.
right? Yeah.
If in the U.S. it's a 501(c)(3), and if you're a 501(c)(3), you pretty much 100% can get it.
Yeah,
So
that's actually really good advice because you can just volunteer, and
yeah.
you probably like if you're interested in marketing, you can learn a lot more than just PPC. Um,
Hmm.
I would say that's sort of the path for most people though. They start broad and then they just fall into one of the categories in marketing that they like.
Yeah, I
Uh,
started like my first job out of college was just kind of basically a glorified intern, just kind of not really a specialist, just doing all sorts of marketing stuff. And eventually you kind of narrow and find what you like. So yeah.
yeah, for me it was sales copywriting, but then I realized I liked sales more than the copywriting.
Hmm.
And then I realized I like the PPC and in marketing the most.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just kind of happens. So yeah, so how would you recommend to learn PPC? Maybe volunteer at a nonprofit. How much would you be speaking about with your own money to learn? Yeah, I mean, ideally you try to consume as much information as you can about PPC, about the platform. You create an account and you also just sort of browse, see what's in the Google platform. You do the certifications, right? You do the Google certs. Um,
Yeah.
you look at some YouTubers who maybe don't say the exact same things as the certs do, because the certs are very much pro Google. So you should also have some counterbalance with people who
Yeah.
have some more in-depth knowledge about like how the system actually works. So Google will be like, this is amazing, but it's not always amazing. Um, and other times it's even more than amazing. So make sure you have a broad theoretical understanding of like like all the things that come and that you'll have to know with PPC. Bidding strategies,
Yeah.
keywords. Maybe read a couple books about PPC. I know Gil's got a great book, Introduction to Becoming a Digital Marketer, I think is the name.
Yeah.
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 That's
Yes.
this is the second time I'm shilling your book,
Thank,
dude.
thank, yeah, thanks for the plug again. I would also recommend most people have a family member or family friend or something with a small business
Yeah.
that likely isn't advertising. Even spending $100 a month
Yeah.
on something like that can be an interesting, like just work for free for them and just spend 100 of their bucks or something.
Just try to
And
really prepare for it though, because like
oh,
if you
yeah,
just
don't burn
start,
your,
yeah, if you're just gonna start doing stuff without like any like overarching strategy, you're just gonna
yeah,
waste money
learn everything you can
before spending it all.
without actually spending money, then spend a very little bit of money.
Yeah.
Um, and ideally your own. If you don't have any of your own, then spend someone else's.
Yeah, and like
But
you can spend your own money. I think it might be a little bit more difficult. Like for me, I already had experience with like website building, so building funnels and the sort of design aspect of it. Like nothing fancy, just decent looking websites. And like the copywriting and like being able to like make good copy on the landing pages. Like I already had experience with that, so it was pretty easy for me to start experimenting with PPC on top. But if you don't know how to do
yeah,
those
I
things, it's
wouldn't
harder
I
to learn on
wouldn't
your own.
learn PPC without also having a pretty broad understanding of the internet in general. Build a website, send an email campaign,
Yeah,
you know, design a logo, install WordPress, so that sort of stuff.
yeah,
Um,
like you, and I think that's why so many people like it's great to first become a bit of a generalist as a marketer. Because like I can still do CRO, I can still do copy, I can still do funnel strategy, I can still do a bit of design, like not top class, right? Like not like top level, but still good. And
and
then
it helps you in PPC because
absolutely,
you look at a client's website and you're like, hey, it's not converting because this. Like
dude,
all
it's
the
crazy.
all this info is
I don't know if you ever have this, but like I like to like play this game where I'm just like I'm gonna expect a conversion rate of about this on this website, and then like
mhm.
I do the
Oh,
PPC and I'm like, got it.
it's amazing what looking at a website you can just be like, yeah, they got it, or they need some help.
Yeah, and like
Just
you'll just start
two
knowing like,
seconds.
oh yeah, this is gonna be like 0.5 to 1%, right? Or like, oh,
Yeah.
this is likely gonna be 2 or 3. Like it's insane. Like you can actually, the more websites
Hmm.
you look at and the more you study, the more you actually are able to assess.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
then like PPC kind of becomes a superpower because you can combine it with like the data you're getting from the keyword planner, right? You're looking at average CPCs, you're looking at the website, and before you know it, you kind of like can use the art of PPC. Pretentious
Hmm.
thing number two. Uh,
The art of
the art
PPC.
of PPC, and you can just like be like, okay, well, 100 clicks are going to cost me, 200
Hmm.
bucks. I expect a conversion rate of like around this. Their average deal is, I don't know, this much. Hey, they're making a 30% margin or 30% profit.
Yeah.
Nice. That means it is something that we can work with and something we can grow, right?
Yeah, for a while, actually, because that's kind of such an art, we had a, this was way back. I made a JavaScript calculator on our website for
Nice.
calculating, um, basically, you could calculate performance beforehand just by knowing a few elements.
There's so much you can do. Like, there's so much, like, forecasting. Um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah,
actually, like,
you
I kind of want
quickly
to
get
expand on
used
that.
to numbers. Oh,
Do
oh,
you
go ahead.
think, do you consider PPC more of an art? Or do you, like, because I feel like I do a lot, like, I don't want to diminish myself here, but I do a lot of things on intuition. and that intuition isn't based on nothing. That's like previous experience and previous data analysis, obviously. But like I
Yeah,
feel like the
it's
more you do it, the more like you actually start doing things intuitively.
it's in like experiential science. Like it's very much a science, but the strategy is so important, and the
Yeah.
only way you you know that strategy is through like long, painful nights of like, oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's a mix, very like very much an art, very much a science.
I mean, it's awesome
Um,
when you do get like niche knowledge, because like HVAC I think is pretty competitive. Like it's
mhm.
considered one of the harder like niches
Yeah,
to succeed
totally.
in, alongside with like roofing and like I don't know maybe some other high ticket home improvement. But like first account I managed took me a month to like get a good CPA. Like I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap! Like we're spending $500 per phone call. Like this is crazy. Like just constantly like thinking of different ways to get that account to work, right? Second account I started managing in HVAC, you know, a little bit shorter, like 3 weeks, like already
Hmm.
like better before like they start getting some results. Third account, boom, week, right? Like in a week, I was
Totally.
running, and it was just like instantly. And I think like with PPC at least, like the more you spend in a niche, like I mean, I guess I'm doing more lead generation than e-commerce. Just the faster you get with that, and like then the intuition kind of comes. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's also like sort of the value you can really add to business, right? Because like if you can like get them rolling, you can get them leads in a week, and like if you've done that maybe 10 times already, right? Maybe not only in one industry, but like sort of like overall like lead gen, and you can like also do that forecasting, like look at the website and you're in a client call, and you can make a confident prediction and say, yeah, I think in a week I can get you a couple leads. And then if you actually
Hmm.
do that, yeah, clients for life,
Yeah,
right? Like,
I think I've gotten to where I've I can open up a new Google Ads account, and in 15 seconds, I know if we can help them or not.
that's amazing.
Just by looking, like you can just scroll and you're like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
Just because of the experience in the niche and seeing hundreds of Google Ads accounts. So the more niche you get, for us, it's e-commerce. Like we know really quickly. Yeah.
Also, like the cool thing is as well is like at some point, like I mean, you must have had this too. Like you just realize like if I know the account can work, if there's potential, it just becomes a
Mm-hmm.
question of time until hitting that point of profitability. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
you just know because you've got the skill, and it's just do I have enough time
Yeah.
to like cross
Yeah.
that like loss to break even to profitability point. Like that's
Right.
amazing because then you're just like I'm not even doubting like my ability.
Yeah.
And the nice thing with that is because you're not
Yeah.
really only looking at your own ability, you're also like you're starting to know how the markets work, starting to know how like the bidding process works, how the auction works. You do the analysis, and you're just like, I can make this work. I don't know how long it's going to take, right? Maybe it's going to take a month or a couple of weeks or 2 months, but I know I'm going to be able to make it work, and that's just really really great because if you can make it work, you can make the client happy, and you don't have churn, right?
The trick is getting it working before they're unhappy.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
is
there's
the main,
definitely a race against time for every client you can
because that
onboard.
it has changed, and that's the tricky thing about PPC is it's changed so much over the years. Five
Dude,
years
account
ago,
by
we could
account.
turn around an account in like a week.
Yeah.
It might be 2 months now.
But I
So
honestly, I
it's
kind of love that, dude. To me, it's that barrier, it's that moat.
you
Like,
like that pain.
yeah, like, like to me, honestly, I like that it's becoming a lot more strategic because I know that a lot of competitors are gonna not be able to handle that. Like, they're just gonna, cause like, dude, I'm managing like around 10 accounts.
Hmm.
Now imagine you're a fucking PPC specialist. You're managing 50 accounts. right?
Oh, those churn and burn
And like
agencies
you
are
don't
going
have the
away.
ability to just use the cookie cutter approach and boom, the account's working. No, you actually have to think, right? You actually have to like be
Hmm.
busy. That's great for someone like me because those accounts are going to churn, and then they're going to like somehow find
Come
their
to
way
you.
to exactly, and then
Yeah.
so like I really like that, and I mean like at like I mean for you and me both, like we're already in the industry, so the harder it gets to enter is a good thing for us, like technically speaking, right?
Yes. So, for all the clever people who are outside the industry right now who are listening, the key is stick around long enough that you're in the industry
Yes,
and nobody else will follow you because it's too hard.
and just
It is
keep
hard.
keep learning. Like
Yeah.
don't be like don't get complacent and just be like, oh, I got my position, I'm gonna do nothing now. Like keep building your position so that like that entry just like like you've got the entry and then you've got the hill that you're on, right? So it's like a double barrier. um,
Digital marketing changes every single week somehow.
yep.
It's stressful over time, but you
Yeah.
just keep with it. And eventually you will have years of that stress built up behind you and a lot of knowledge
Oh
that you
yeah.
just realize you suddenly had. Yeah.
I mean there's
So,
I would say there's a lot of timeless stuff in marketing, but you should look
hmm
outside of the fence or over the fence of PPC if you want to learn those
hmm
timeless things, especially like consumer psychology and like understanding how people buy. Because like I was talking with someone on Reddit. They were asking like, hey, what do you mean with like a high intent or high commercial intent keyword, right? And
hmm
I was just
hmm
like talking to him. I was like, well, it's really just psychology, right? Like it's being able to understand, like and using your own empathy. Be like, what is this person going through? Like, what is this person experiencing? What are they looking for? The more you can understand that, and that's those things are kind of timeless, right? Like it's not
hmm
like if
Yeah,
you know that, yeah, like you
people
can
don't
apply
change.
that to
They're the
any,
same.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can apply that to like anything in marketing. So that's super powerful. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, on the like sort of like loop back to the race against time. I think for anyone who's serious about PPC, they should really get good at onboarding. So the technicality of onboarding, setting up campaigns, feed optimization, making sure conversion tracking is set up, know how to do it in Shopify, know how to do it in GTM, know how to do it in Google Analytics. Because if you can just do that on the day you onboard the client, 9 out of 10 times they're going to be impressed because they're going to be like, oh, the last guy didn't do it or didn't do it properly,
Yeah.
or I tried messing around with it and all this code, I don't know how to do it. If you can just like do that off the
That's
cuff, like instantly,
That's
like
one of the most common things we fix right off the bat.
yeah,
Like I would say for the majority of accounts we take on, even like big, decent accounts. Yeah. Um, just fixing tracking.
yeah, like it's
Yeah.
it's. I mean, the first couple of times you do it, it's a bit confusing, but after a while, you're just really fast at it. And then if you can learn how to do the JavaScript events, so like if they have like forms that don't have thank you pages and all that, if you learn how to do those as well, it just wins so much trust in the beginning. Because like what Gil just said, it's really true. It's like you need to show them results as fast as you can, even if it's not realistic, right? So you need to get so good that you can beat the average, right? So if the average PPC person takes a month to get some results, get good enough so you can get results in 2 weeks, right? Because if you can get results in 2 weeks, if in week one you're doing, all the conversion tracking and make sure that's all fixed, and then by week two you get a first couple leads, boom, they're going to be so impressed with you. You're just going to be able to retain that client.
I wish it was that easy. I'm not that good.
I'm not that
But
good
yeah,
either,
you're right. It's the curve is such that you just have to be a little bit better
yeah.
and it just launches you. Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy the grind. Maybe I am the masochist here, where I'm just like, let's go. But
Yeah.
get a little bit better or get really good. I recommend getting really good.
Get good.
Get good. Let's see. I think we got some more chat activity here. If I'm doing web development, is there a way I can sell it on a recurrent payment basis instead of one? I've I've actually seen people do that, like website management
Hmm.
or website
Hmm.
maintenance. You probably
I
can't
don't think
charge
you can
crazy amount.
charge a whole lot.
No, maybe like
You can't charge a
$100
whole
a
lot
month
for
or
that.
something. Like I don't know.
Could you make an income out of it? Yes.
It would
Yeah.
be like if you've got a web development agency or business, it could be like your 10 or 20% revenue. But it's not going to be
Yeah.
your like
Yeah, you'd
yeah.
you'd have to have such high volume to make any money from
And
that.
then your business almost just
Um,
becomes website management.
yeah.
Because like if you're getting $150 a month, maybe like you need 10
Yeah,
websites
I
just to do
mean,
1.5 grand. Like
yeah, depends on how much money you want to make.
yeah,
Um,
so he says like a big one-off project and then small recurring. Yeah, that's the way.
yeah. Yeah, if you can, charge 4 grand to make a website and then $100 a month after that in perpetuity,
You do
why
have to
not?
think of like
Yeah.
a good offer there. I would assume like you can include hosting in that $100, so you're gonna eat away a little bit of
Probably.
your profit. Because like if you like, here's the thing also, if the business owner doesn't have any changes on a month by month basis, they're quickly gonna say something like, "Yeah, never mind. Like we don't
Yeah,
really
like
need."
you have to think of what kind of a website is this. If this is just a portfolio site for a local business, like they'll have one change a year, and there's no reason for them to pay you $1,800 a year for that. If they have an e-commerce store and they're selling
Oh yeah.
something and products are going, like suddenly you can charge a lot more than
Oh yeah.
$150 a month.
Yeah.
So
And that, like, what you're sort of talking about now is really just like, are you able to identify a larger problem, right? Like a larger, because like if you're gonna ask for a recurring fee, you effectively need either recurring labor, right? So new tasks every month, or you're gonna need some sort of problem that just repeats, right? That needs constant
yeah.
tending or constant attention. Um,
As a rule of thumb, people are only going to pay if you are saving them something, whether it's time or stress or money.
yep.
Yeah, if they weren't making website updates every month anyway, they're not going to pay you anything
But
to
if I were to look
maintain it.
at if I think about the website development model, I think your method is not recurring revenue. It's trying to move upward as fast as you can. So really try to get good and try to get very good at sales, try to get very good at client acquisition. Because I do know like as you get bigger and as you get more reputation, it's like a more established, like like if you're a decently sized website builder, you can charge 40K for like a larger
Yeah,
website, right? And if you
you
they go even
there
higher,
are
like
there are agencies that are making good money in web dev. They tend to be a lot of custom work.
yep,
They tend to be a lot of like upmarket clients, but you can charge 40, 50, 100, 200K for these websites.
yep,
That's not easy to get there. You
no,
have to be the best. Um, I I think cheap website development is out the door. Um,
yeah.
it's most people under the age of 40, I bet, could go to Shopify or Squarespace and whip up a website themselves. And it's going to be very difficult for them to pay a lot of money to someone else to do that. That's
I
at least
think
what I've
overall
seen.
development could be good though. Maybe not just web, but like if you were able to
Yeah.
do more complicated programming and like building systems,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
whatever those systems are.
Or kind of like Luke said earlier, more like implementation
Oh yeah,
specialists, like kind of integrating Salesforce or other CRMs into a
like
website,
these massive,
doing
like also just
inventory.
like Salesforce programming. Like if you can do that, like it's there's a lot of there's a lot of money to be made there. I know a lot of like programmers like use the business model of being a consultant, so they are more of an hourly worker rather than like a recurring revenue or project based. Um,
Mhm.
like you can be sort of the guy that like or gal that is flown in and just kind of like spends like 150 or 300 hours in like a couple months, builds the system and charges $100 an hour, right?
Mhm.
Like that, and like usually those projects tend to like also like good for you. They tend to be more than the hours that are originally allocated because no one knows how to actually accurately
Yeah.
like put hours down. And
Scope that
trust me,
out.
if you've
Yeah.
built half of the fucking thing, they're not gonna say goodbye to you. Um, and once you've built the full thing, there's always going to be new work. There's always going to be more work, and then you hire someone to do the work for you, and you just become a manager, right? That's how you scale.
I love management.
Yeah. But I think web dev is interesting. I think you can like as a developer, you like obviously there's a lot of demand for that. I mean, I can't tell you the details because I'm not in web dev. Um, would you say though, if you should be doing ads and web development, I'd just pick one. Um, you're
Agreed.
competing against people who pick one. I see so many agencies that just try to do everything at once, who try to do Google, Meta, all other platforms, and they end up just being mediocre at every single one of them. Um, you can
Yeah,
try
you
that
want
route,
an
or
elevator pitch. If someone asks you what you do, you need to be able to explain everything that you do in a couple short sentences. And a lot of these agencies that are full service, they're like, "Oh, we do some web design, we do some ads, we do
yeah,
some," and it's like, okay, I didn't learn anything from that. I want to know what you do. What are you good at?
yeah.
And if you can have one or two things that you're like, I do,
It's
you know,
also so
I do liquid
powerful.
themes for Shopify. It's
Like
like,
the
okay, I know
awesome thing with
exactly what you do.
that is like you're gonna have a lot of case studies that you can just kind of pull out of your magic bag and be like, well, this time I did that, and this happened. This other time this happened. Like I did this and that happened. And like you'll have so many more examples that can relate to the client. So because like for Gil it's the same. Like because I do just Google, like I will have like I can find an example that relates to almost any person that like, comes like any business that approaches me. Because like right now like I've like done enough across different niches that I can find something that's sort of related to what they're doing, right? Maybe they're doing law. Well, I can say I've been doing insurance lead generation. A bit similar, not the same.
Hmm.
Similar type of like accounts set up, account like similar structure, similar goals. Can talk about that, right? Like home services. Well, maybe someone does plumbing. Well, I can talk about how I've done HVAC, right? Not the same, but it relates. E-commerce, maybe someone I don't know comes with clothing. Well, I can say I've done jewelry. Well, that relates.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the more you stick with one particular thing, whether that's like Shopify development or whether that's just general web development, the more you're going to get these case studies that are going to be highly, highly useful in your sales calls. Because when you're actually having a sales call and when you can give examples, it's just a lot more real than when you just only come up with ideas and with suggestions. Like I just most of
Yeah.
the time I just talk about examples and relate it to what they're doing and I just share my strategy and they can do it themselves. But most of the time they're like, all right, well, let's get started.
Yep. Same. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like niching man, so I definitely recommend that. It's one thing to get really good at.
Yeah.
Like if I were to
Yeah.
make a new business,
Being
say
moderately good at a lot of things and then very good at one thing
yeah,
is
like say
usually a good
PPC
mix.
were to no longer be a thing and like I'd have to create something new, I'd take the same approach. Just pick something
Hmm.
that I enjoy, that where there's high demand, just do that one thing and just build that up.
Yep.
By case studies, do you mean times you worked and what you've done. Yeah, basically just
Yeah,
what
just your
previous projects.
portfolio or
Yeah,
your experience. Yeah.
previous projects, portfolio. In the case of web development, it's portfolio, and you can sort of talk about like what you've done, what went well, what didn't go well, and the more you can like have a case study that's similar to the business that you're speaking with, like the higher the chance they're gonna be like, well, he's done it before, so you can do it again. This was a lot away from data, but I think that's
Data.
fine.
Data lies.
Data lies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Data lies or data lies?
Data lies.
Data lies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, um, I don't know. I think we're a bit over time
Yeah.
already. Um,
Yeah, I probably need to run,
me
but it's
too.
been a good chat.
Been a good chat. It's been nice. We've had some good talks, also with the chat. Um, I like streaming on
Yeah, good
YouTube.
questions.
It's cool. Um,
Yeah.
well, I think that was a stream.
Cool. Next time.
All right. Well, catch y'all later.